This is Sportish.
Do it better.
This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish.
This is Sportish. It's the program that we started to ostensibly talk about sports during the global sports shutdown. Thank you for joining us on For the Fans, ftfnext.com. Whether you're listening to an audio version of this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, we welcome you in as well. Jeff Brault alongside Dr. Keith Struther, Director of the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. Our producer is Mike Wallace. And hey, happy Super Bowl week, everybody. It's a great week to have a sports show, right? The week of the big game. And Keith, look, I know I speak for you and certainly for Mike, when there is something so big in the sports world, like the Super Bowl, I want to make our audience a solemn promise. We won't talk about it.
No.
It's not what we do here. It's not what we do here. You can find plenty of places to talk about the Super Bowl. Here, we're not doing it. Now, that said, I know, you got ties to the state of Florida, Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. First time that a home team has ever played in their stadium for the Super Bowl. I'll give you a chance. Anything you want to say about the Super Bowl before we move on and pretend it doesn't exist?
I did like the part today, as we were taping it, we were taking questions about if they were an animal, which animal would they be? I thought that was pretty interesting. That's something I would want to ask Patrick Mahomes. That's definitely my top 5 of what I would ask them. We did that once in an English poetry class in college, where you picked a name out of a hat and you had to describe the person that you got as a color and as an animal. And I thought that was really risky because you could say something very not nice. Like, what if you were like, I don't know, if you said like a pig, like it's not nice. Like, so you had to describe people as a color and as an animal. And it seemed to go okay. I found it to be, I don't think you could get away with that today.
So that is really risky. Also, we just learned why we're not talking about the Super Bowl, because of what you found interesting about the big game. We gave you a chance to say anything. You were like, yeah, they talked about kind of.
Here's what I find interesting is they're finally playing at home, and they can't have any of their own home fans in the stadium.
Of course. That's of course what I find interesting about it too. That's so risky, but it's risky because you don't always know the other people in a class particularly well. Like, how can you do that with ostensibly strangers?
Well, I mean, it's a poetry writing class. You form a tight-knit writing community. Like you must give yourself to others as you become a poet. Let me tell you what, I didn't do that well in that class. Although I believe this was one of a very bohemian poetry teacher, as apparently they are wont to be. So I believe she told us day one, you're all getting A's. And that's not what you want to tell a Keith Strudler day one of class, because that takes the effort down. And so she asked if we had ever written poetry before. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I write the lyrics for my band. And she looked at me and she said, that's not poetry. I almost said that's not fair, but if you had listened to our songs, you would actually you would have to agree. Whether or not it's poetry would be hard to say. It certainly was not poetic. So I do remember, though, I was described as I believe it was a color, something. It was like a red convertible and a puppy dog.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah,
that was the high watermark.
You got off kind of easy there.
I got off very easy. Very easy.
True fact about me, you can believe it or not, I am a published poet.
Is this in like Scholastic magazine in like 5th grade?
So when I was like 7 years old, I won a national. Well, I didn't win. I was one of the winners of a national poetry competition. One of the winners from my state, the state of Pennsylvania, and we all got published in a book published by the Poetry Guild of like youth poetry. So I am, for the rest of time, a published poet.
That's like one of the episodes. You remember the episode of Cheers where Diane could not get her poetry published, and she got this rejection letter that she thought was really nice because it said, basically revise and resubmit, and Sam Malone got published. So do you remember that one?
I remember nothing of it. So this might be a bit of the generation gap here. I've never seen Cheers.
You've never watched, but it's still on. You can watch it whenever you want.
I've never seen it. Is it on streaming? Is it on one of the streaming networks?
Yeah, you can get it somewhere. I feel like it's on. I feel like it's interesting because some shows seem to transcend time. Like I don't understand, but Friends has absolutely Friends is timeless apparently. And I don't really get that. Cheers, on the other hand, which was equally kind of a big sitcom. I mean, it was kind of the most popular sitcom on television for several years, just like Friends. It did not seem to transcend time periods. It came and it went, and Frasier came after it, and that was kind of the second version. But it's interesting that Cheers, and I don't know why. I don't know if it was just the humor was kind of routed in place or whatever. I always find that very interesting, which shows kind of find a second life and become very popular, and which shows seem to kind of do not seem to transcend. Although I would tell you, watch Cheers, still funny.
So another possibly unbelievable, but also true fact about me. I, like many people, when I was in Boston as a kid, went to the outside of the Cheers bar. The inside's not the same, but the outside, I went there. Sure. And I went there immediately after meeting Tony Danza in Boston Common.
So I have a friend who thinks that Tony Danza is the worst actor in the history. like in college, he would literally just go on these tantrums of like, well, how is Tony Danza getting that part? But no one asked him. So
I met Tony Danza.
You ever mentioned a show? What was his big show? Was that the show where he was the
boss? Who's the boss?
He was the maid, right? He was the housekeeper.
Right, yeah. I met Tony Danza. Now
that show used to make him so angry. Used to make him so. We would sometimes just turn it on just to get him angry.
Past the Who's the Boss years, Tony Danza had a short-lived daytime talk show, the Tony Danza Show.
Of course.
And when I met him in Boston Common, he was with a film crew, and he was shooting sort of like man on the street conversations for the commercial for his talk show before it launched. And I made the cut. So I was in Tony Danza's pre-launch talk show commercial and a published poet. So those are two interesting facts about me. And now here's an interesting fact about Keith Strudler. And I don't know the backstory to this. That's why I'm glad that we have this forum to air this out. Tennessee hired a new football coach. They hired Josh Heupel to be their football coach.
Great hire.
Josh Heupel once slept in Keith Strudler's bed.
It's true. It's not an untrue story. Now, I think the insinuation, which I will discredit, I was not in the bed at the time. So
I wasn't insinuating that.
Well, it just
your bed is your bed, whether you're in it or not.
So Josh Heupel, I wish it were more interesting. Josh Heupel, his high school, I believe he was in the Dakotas, if I'm not mistaken. Wherever he was, I believe it was the Dakotas. His high school coach was a very good family friend of ours. We got to know him when he was in Houston as this high school coach, a guy named Steve Svensson. I still believe coaching high school. And I believe in Texas at this point. I can't remember because he came back to Texas. And he was in like the big Texas high school kind of coaching thing. He was a grad assistant at the University of Houston and coached football there. We knew him from something else. And so he came down with Josh Heupel when Josh was in high school to a U of H, like one of these scouting camps or one of these big kind of all-comers kind of things. And I remember they came to our house and this guy, Steve, was like, no, this kid's pretty good. Like he's kind of special. And so I was like, whatever. And I don't know how the negotiation went that somehow, like, cause I feel like I was also at the house.
I, by the way, love your impression of like teenage you, whatever.
but somehow, well, I'm older than Josh Heupel. But somehow we all were at the house, all of us, including Josh Heupel, and the decision was made that if someone's going to sleep in Keith Strudler's bed, it's going to have to be Josh Heupel. Like that's more. It's more important that Josh get the bed than Keith. I don't know where I slept that night, but I can tell you where I didn't sleep that night. And so Josh Heupel, and I will say, I'm not going to say it's a linear, it's 100% or 1-to-1. it would be hard not to credit some of his future success, both at Oklahoma and then, of course, after that. Although I believe he was drafted, correct? I'm blanking on it.
Yeah, he was in the league.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to credit at least some of that to the good night's sleep I offered him, before he got prospected.
Two things. Do you think he'd remember that?
No.
Like if you and him crossed paths, he wouldn't remember that. That was the only time you ever met him. Just that one weird night where he slept in your house.
Yeah. The only thing he might say is he made it so difficult for me. He probably like, yeah, I got to use the bed, but he wouldn't shut up about it. So that I don't know. He spent a couple of days at the house. You never know. Well, these guys live crowded lives though. They're always on the road. They're always doing camps, but I don't know. I hope so. You know what? I hope so. And I'll tell you what, I feel like we should get him on the show.
Yeah.
And we should have done it when he was at UCF. Shame on us. But we
can do one of the most awkward things you can do when you meet someone for the first time and you're like, hi, I'm Jeff. Hi, I'm Keith. We've actually met before.
Oh no. You should never do it. There's a couple reasons why you should never do it. One is, the other person doesn't know. I mean, the other person does, because if they did, they would have said, they would have been like, oh, I know you. All right. Secondly, it also exposes you as being kind of weird. Like you're the kind of person that remembers like this chance meeting, you have stored this, like your life is so vapid that you have stored this chance meeting in the back of your head for that long, just waiting for the moment. Like it's a gateway to being a stalker is where that puts you.
You're immediately surrendering the power dynamic. You're saying that me meeting you was something memorable. You meeting me didn't even register in your life.
It's 100% true. You don't admit it. You always, and I'll tell you what, even if you're thinking it, you kind of jockey for the position. You try, because they may be thinking, you don't know if they're thinking the same thing. You try to get them to go down that road first, right? You want to play the upper hand at all times. You always want to play the upper hand. You want to make it seem, this is true about almost everything. You want to make it seem like it was more important to the other person than it was to you, even if it was deeply important to you. Like if it were a date, you'd be like, yeah, maybe like this could happen a lot with someone you went out on a date with, right? And you never ever want to run into someone that you went out on a date or two with, God forbid, even dated for a little while, and have to remind them or kind of acknowledge like, oh, we went out once. You can't go down that road. You cannot, because you're just hanging out there like a giant meatball at that point. It's over.
And the only thing more awkward than that, because I agree with everything you just said, is when, especially in the context of dating, when you remember it in such a way and they're like, oh, that's not true. When you're like, yeah, we went out for like 2 months. And they're like, no, we didn't. That is absolutely not a date.
I'm telling you, I know of people who have had people come up to them and be like, oh, it's great to see you. Like, and you're like, I don't know who you are. Oh, remember we dated? They've even described their house like you lived in that great apartment. No, not registered. The other great humiliation, and it ties back into your story about Josh Heupel sleeping in your bed as a teenager. I'm assuming you were a teenager or so, give or take. No, I'm older than Josh Heupel. So I was probably in college or something.
So this is even worse. I can remember this as a kid. I'm an only child. Shocking.
Of course, we know this.
And I can remember the days that I would get kicked out of my bed because like someone was coming over or whatever, and a guest was going to get the bed because for whatever reason, when you have guests over, it means that you have to just move out for them.
Yeah.
So that
people who have no interest in your contribute nothing to the dynamic, and you are now it's not
out of my space.
Yeah. What kind of friend is this? A family friend? A family friend?
No, when it happened to me, it was family, like extended family would come over and they would bring the cousins or whatever. And it'd be like, well, you can sleep on the floor. It would drive me insane. I hated that so much. I'm like, they can sleep on the floor.
Where are you? And I think I know, where are you on the bed chair?
On the bed? I'm not on that spectrum.
I'm
not
totally
a big fan of the bed chair.
I'm 100% with the bed chair.
I am the guy like when there's like a bachelor party or something being planned, and because you never really know with a bachelor party where some people are the cost is irrelevant. They're like, yeah, whatever, a couple grand, I don't care, I'll spend whatever needs to be spent. And other people are like, can we get out of here for under $40? and so
well,
I'm always,
we talked about this last week. The place where that becomes really dangerous is Vegas, because the delta on Vegas is
oh my God,
wide.
it's insane. You can get a hotel room for $25 or $25,000.
And you don't know when you get in that car service to go out to a restaurant, that's where it gets ugly. It gets ugly.
And so I am always the guy who's trying to like subtly figure out how many rooms we're getting, and then doing the math in my head. I'm like, well, this doesn't work. This does not work. 3 rooms for 14 people. What are we doing here? We all have jobs. I'm that guy. But you can never be the person who's like, well, I'm just going to get my own room, guys. Because then you're weird and you're also kind of left out a little bit.
You can't do that. We've tried. You need, at that point, you need a partner. You got to get a partner. It's difficult. It's difficult. I get it. But I will say I'm a big fan of the bed share. Just bring it on. I mean, I'm a big fan of the bed share. I mean, if I'm in the situation... If I'm in a situation,
how can anyone be the big fan of the bed share? You make it
you
sound like it's your ideal situation. Be like, hey, Todd, come on, you're bunking with me.
One king's plenty. That's all right. We don't need too bad. No, here's the thing. I think it's because when you're on the track circuit in college so long, you never know what your situation's going to be. You never know if you're getting a bed or not. And at some point, after sleeping on the floor before like a 10,000 and you can't walk the next day, you start to say, well, I'll take the bed. But weird things, well, I won't go down this road.
Well, now I'm sorry, what?
Continue. I'm just saying when you're traveling, it's just weird stuff happens. It's just all weird.
Yeah, like what? What weird stuff happens when you and 60 of your track teammates are in some podunk hotel somewhere?
I've woken up when we've had these like chilly, like we had on a long road trip. I've woken up and the person who I fell asleep next to is not the person I woke up next to. That's happened. I've woken up and they've been wearing different clothes, like all sorts of weird stuff. I think it's just it's a tense environment. You know, these teams there, a lot of stuff can happen. All right, let's continue. Are we done talking about the Super Bowl?
Unless you have something else you want to add, because we don't talk about the Super Bowl. It's not, people do not come here for that. If you want to know about the Super Bowl, you can find out whatever you want to know.
And I do hope the Bucs win. I don't know. Just because I'm a Bucs fan. If I weren't a Bucs fan, I don't know how in the world you could root for the Bucs. I just don't.
Yeah, boy. I mean, this would be the only thing to say about the Super Bowl. Tom Brady is so easy to root against, while at the same time, so easy to recognize the impressive accomplishment that we are all living through. Like the fact that he took the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl and he's 75 years old. It's unbelievable that he did that.
I think he is now. Boy, and I hate this is it's dumb to compare people in the same sport. It's even dumber to compare people from different sports.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. He's the Michael Jordan of football.
I'm like, well, that guy. Well, there's a highlight player who was really good, but I will say, that was that was my argument for LeBron. Was like everywhere he went, they got good, and every place he left, they got bad.
Yep.
Brady's the same thing. Like Brady. He went to a team that was not going to go to the Super Bowl or get close, and now they're in the Super Bowl. And he left a team that was good, and they didn't make the playoffs. That you don't get any more affirmation than that. I feel like we're reaching the point in Tom Brady's career where he's played for like 50 years that people are starting, even people that really hate him. And Jordan went through this. Even people that really hate him have finally come around to be like, yeah, I guess he's the best of all time. I guess we're just going to have to deal with it, and you're going to have to respect it a little bit. I think people that can't get to that place, I don't understand like what their joy of sports is. Like if you can't get to the place where you look at Tom Brady and recognize that we may never see anything like this ever again, at least in our lifetimes, then you're really missing part of the joy of watching sports.
Yeah. Well, people also love to hate. I mean, that is part of the joy of watching sports for some people. Some people are happier when certain teams lose than they are when their team wins. That's enough. That is enough of doing a sports show. We're not doing that anymore. We talk a lot about the Olympics on our show, but we do not talk about the Olympics in the context of how much we love the 100 meters. We talk about the Olympics in the context of could we dedicate ourselves to being on the United States breakdancing team? The answer, by the way, probably no. But I think there's a glimmer of hope. Hillsdale College, which is a private conservative college in Michigan, the kind of college that does not take any state or federal funding. And the reason why I'll be apparent.
I mean, this is private in like the extreme, like so private that they don't want to take federal funds because they don't want to listen to, they don't want to follow Title IX. Like
exactly.
That's how private.
Yeah. They don't take federal funds because they aren't eligible for federal funds. They, however, are eligible to be the home and title sponsor of USA Shooting, our Olympic shooting program. They have a Division II athletics program, and part of that Division II athletics program is a apparently wonderful rifle program, and they have tremendous sport shooting facilities. So Hillsdale College, this private conservative college, has become the host, the home facility, and the main sponsor of USA Shooting. However, they're not doing it out of their goodness of their heart or because they just love the sport so much. This is the headline quote from their release announcing this partnership. "We are dedicated to offering the very best in shooting sports training and constitutional education for all ages." So, Keith, in case people are having trouble reading between the lines, how is Hillsdale College using our national shooting program, a national sports program that represents the United States of America?
Well, it's interesting. So when you go to Hillsdale, you care about two things, and that is
I'm waiting for number two.
Well, sounds like freedom. Shooting and freedom. So, look, sometimes you look for the nuance relationship between sport and politics, and sometimes it just slaps you across the face. Now, you can like this. A few things you can say about this. First, how desperate is the U.S. shooting team right now that they've gone down this road? Because they knew when this happened that this was going to get a lot of negative press in some way. I mean, it's difficult when you're going into this partnership that they are going to be using your sport as a means of furthering a political agenda. And this is all, it's Second Amendment rights. And that's what, and by the way, I always assumed that riflery programs weren't inherently like tied at the hip to the Second Amendment. To me, it does seem like these should be, look, I mean, yes, it does seem like you should be able to have a riflery program without deciding that you also need to have a bazooka in your closet at home, right?
I don't know anybody on the Second Amendment debate spectrum that is against sport shooting. Like, I don't know anybody who's like, we just can't have in society someone shooting at targets.
The winter biathlon.
Right. Like, who is the person that is like, we need to get rid of this scourge?
Yeah. So what this clearly has exposed is in the U.S., certain Olympic sports, particularly Winter Olympic sports, are woefully underfunded. I mean, woefully under. This would not happen in Scandinavia. They would not.
This is why we might be able to get on the breakdance team. I mean, we bring this massive audience. We bring this cult of personality.
What if I just offer the basement? I'm like, look, I have a huge basement. What you need is clean floor. I got clean floor. I got recreational activities. I got a Pop-A-Shot.
And I'll tell you what, I've moved about 12 times in my life. I'll bring the cardboard. I got the cardboard squares. Do they use that in professional breakdancing? I don't know.
I think that's Twister.
I'll bring that too.
Are you talking about like the video game where you like are you talking about like Saturday Night Fever?
No, when you breakdance in the street, you don't do that on asphalt. They do it on a like square of cardboard.
Is that true?
Yeah. You've never seen those breakdancing videos? You think they're out there just rolling around, cutting up their back on the asphalt?
Oh no, I would feel you callus up a little bit. I just assume there's also more on wood floor, like a wood floor.
I would think you'd learn a little bit more about the sport that we're trying to compete into the Olympic level.
Let me tell you what, I can't believe I'm saying this. I think there may be no sport that we are less qualified to compete.
No, it is far and away the one that we have the least amount. I mean, that's what makes it hilarious.
I mean, I actually think like Greco-Roman wrestling, like we got a better shot. I think breakdancing, I don't even know that we finish. I don't know that we finish. I think that the injury. I don't even think
we could start. Like, how does it start?
Well, the music's got to start. The music has to start it. You can't start. I assume you get to pick your tunes and the whole. I mean, I thought. Again, I just don't know.
I don't know either.
So one, you're starting to see how woefully underfunded certain Olympic sports are.
Yeah.
And when Macy's was previously was their sponsor, and basically what a sponsor is for the U.S. Shooting team is a place to shoot. It sounds like it's not like they're getting rich off this thing. They're still working at Home Depot on weekends.
And by the way, a place to shoot, and I looked up Hillsdale shooting facility, is a couple slabs of concrete, like some things that hurl clay discs into the air, and a big open field. It's not a lot of infrastructure.
I went to Boy Scout camp. I know how this works. When I went on a fourth grade field trip where we went shooting. Did I ever tell you that?
No, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, you grew up in Texas. I'm surprised they waited until fourth grade. I would have thought they would have just put a tiny rifle in your crib.
It's just that's when I moved there. Fourth grade. I think it was either fourth or fifth grade, and we went out to like a farm. I'm sure it was like someone's farm. Some guy just had a farm, and they were like, "Hey," like literally, it was like pull, and you gotta. Like I was like a kid, and they gave you a shotgun, and I just remember them being. I was like, "This is great! Like this is what we do here," and. So we went out and shot. And the only thing I remember them saying before I shot is like, there's going to be a little kickback. No, you can't do that now. You cannot take fourth graders out on a bus to a
Shouldn't have done it then. Don't blame the times. Don't blame the times for why the fourth graders can't go target shooting on a field trip.
We signed the release. I can only imagine what my mom was thinking when she signed the release. Because mom was like from Brooklyn. Like, even though we lived in Florida before that, it was very much kind of a shelter, like in an enclave of like former New Yorkers, which is what Florida can be. I can only imagine like, oh, you're going on a field trip. You're going to a farm to shoot clays. What is a clay?
She probably thought it was like pottery or something. Oh, you just shoot it right in the kiln there.
It's true, because my aunt was a potter, like she made pottery, so she probably did think that. So we know that there's a financial issue. The other thing I think that is clearly interesting is, look, the proclivity, the willingness for everyone involved to use sport in such a highly partisan political manner. And I think, look, I think this is a failure of the USOC to allow this to happen. I think this should have been better vetted. I don't know what the vetting process is for sponsorships, but I think in the end, look, they're either going to have to fund these programs, find a place for them to train, or not compete. I think this is a real failure. And I'm trying to figure out if I blame Hillsdale. I got lots to blame Hillsdale for, but in some ways, blaming them for doing this sponsorship is like blaming a shark for being a shark.
Oh yeah,
they saw an opportunity, right?
Yeah. Why blame them?
They're not the ones who are being entrusted with kind of protecting the integrity of this international sports movement. And so I think it's a real failure of the USOC. Now I will pose this question.
Okay.
If you ran a college, or what winter Olympic sport would you most like to sponsor?
Speed skating. It's not even a question. And not even speed skating. Short track speed skating, where you're just constantly turning.
First of all,
speed skating.
You're wrong for two.
I mean, or like luge.
Honestly, That's it. It's bobsled. It's bobsled. It's always bobsled.
I mean, really, any of the funny ones. Like any of the funny ones. Any of the ones with comically oversized blades involved.
It's always bobsled. Well, I'll tell you what, the long ski jumper, the ones where they fly.
Scary.
That's a great one. That's good. Have you ever seen that? Have you been up to Lake Placid and seen
Lake
that
Placid?
thing?
I have. Yeah, I have. It's scary.
It's nuts. It's nuts. But so I take two things. One is you go for the bobsled, because the bobsled might be, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb here. The bobsled might be the coolest form of transportation in the world. Is there anything cooler than taking a bobsled down the? I mean, I'm sure I'd be terrified and defecated in my pants if I were actually in it going down a mountain. But
I mean, that's
from
tough,
the outside.
like, you know what's pretty cool? A rocket ship. Like, that's pretty cool.
It is, but then look at the bobsled. Look at it.
Yeah, but yeah. I don't know. No, I don't think so. Like,
so the second one, by the way, you got the real answer wrong. If you went to a place like Cornell, like me, the sport you want to sponsor is the Olympic hockey team, because now you've got a feeder system.
Well, that's not funny. What Olympic sport would you like to sponsor? Like, of course it's hockey, which they already, by the way, sponsor. Cornell probably was going to win a national championship where everything got shut down.
Let's stop. Let's not go there.
Right. The whole point of what whenever you start a question with what Winter Olympic sport, what you're really asking is which one is the most hilarious. And the only reason I couldn't say biathlon, which is the most hilarious because it combines two things that aren't related at all. The only reason I couldn't say biathlon is because we were having a high-minded discussion about shooting sports.
How great is it though? Let's not marginalize the biathlon. How amazing is it?
No, I'm comfortable marginalizing the biathlon.
That's because you've never done anything athletic in your life.
Right? I'm not saying it's not difficult. I'm saying it's weird.
No,
I'm sure
weird,
it's plenty hard. It's cross-country skiing mixed with target shooting. Why are these two things blended together?
By the way, that's one of those sports where I wouldn't want to get anywhere near them when they're shooting, because in case they're really exhausted, they just have, they exhale. But I will tell you, that's one of those where they put the heart rate monitors on them and their pulse is like 180 and they bring it down to like 50. Like it's unbelievable. It's not
crazy. It makes no sense. Nothing about that sport makes any sense.
By the way, I want to revisit something we discussed since we're talking about the Olympics. And I know we're going to be moving on soon because there's a very important television show we're going to have to get to at some point. Last week we discussed the Olympics in Tokyo, whether it might happen. Yep. I just want to remind you that I was right about something. I think I mentioned that this is going to come down to the United States. It's going to come down to the U.S. And just this past week, I can't remember who said it, but it basically, and it was someone from Japan and someone affirmed from the IOC, was it'll make a big difference if the U.S. Olympic team takes a position on this. So basically what I said, which is it's going to be a call from the American president. I think the Olympics is going to come down very much to the U.S.'s decision about having a team at the Winter Olympic Games. And I think that is going to be almost a guarantee because of NBC's focus on consolidating and moving all their content from the traditional cable world to Peacock. This is a multi-billion-dollar decision they're making and bet they're taking. And a lot of this now is dependent, particularly with its timing, on ensuring they can force that shift over the summer. They will do literally anything in their power to ensure that the Olympic Games go on. And I think there's going to be a lot of behind the scenes diplomacy to make sure those games happen because of the United States. So I really just want to say I was right.
But you're not right yet. Well, it hasn't happened.
Mark it down. I was right.
You know what? Because of that, I'm making you talk about golf. We weren't going to talk about golf, and now we're talking about golf.
Fine. Go ahead.
Patrick Reed was embroiled in a cheating controversy over the weekend of the Farmers Insurance Open in Torrey Pines. Don't worry, it's not really about golf. This set the Twitter world ablaze because there's nothing that
did he go around the windmill instead?
So basically what happened is he claimed his ball was embedded. He moved his ball before a rules official could come over and verify that it was embedded. Okay. And then he basically told the official, like, hey, feel in the ground here, feel that little indent. My ball is clearly there. And the rules official was like, I guess, you moved it. And so he got a free drop. And a lot of people online were like, that is cheating. He has run afoul of the rules. And anyway, Patrick Reed has run afoul of the rules before. He is known as someone who has gone right up to the line. And previously he's received some penalties in the past. He's also not been penalized. And a lot of people have thought that he could. He has a reputation. Is
he the bad boy of golf? Is that what we're saying here?
He actually kind of is the bad boy of golf. Yeah. Now, while he was not penalized for this incident at Torrey Pines, all the heat that he was getting on Twitter exposed that probably not Patrick Reed himself, but someone very close to Patrick Reed, and most likely his wife, Justine, is operating a burner account to defend Patrick Reed to people that are tweeting negatively about Patrick Reed. This is not the first time that a major sports figure, and Patrick Reed, by the way, is a top 10 golfer in the world. This is not some, afterthought player. This is not the first time that an elite athlete has been exposed, Keith, of having a burner account. Famously, Kevin Durant was replying to people tweeting negatively about Kevin Durant from an account that is not ostensibly Kevin Durant. I think what this is exposing now that we start to see this happening more and more and more again is all these athletes, they sit around and they talk about how they don't listen to things. Oh, I don't pay attention to that. I don't read what's written about me. I don't go on that. That doesn't enter my mind. Malarkey. I think all of them are reading it. I think they're reading all of it. And even if they're trying to avoid it, I think their friends are sending it to them. I think they see everything.
Oh, I 100%. By the way, I do like in a kind of an era and a time period where we had a president try to steal an entire presidential election.
Yeah.
And the golf world is ablaze.
Blaze.
Because cheating may have happened. Like we're at a time period where democracy has almost been stolen from our grasp. But that ball, that divot, that is not a real divot. Like that is an outrage. We cannot allow this to happen. I love when sports fans just can't keep perspective. That's always my favorite. It kind of keeps the world real. Like when you realize, like, look, here's what's really important. That guy cheated. Like he moved his ball.
The line they use in golf, whenever there's like a golf rules question, is that you have to take it seriously and you have to call the penalty because it, quote, protects the integrity of the field. You cannot have a fair event.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, I think golf people, and this is the last point I'll make about actually golf, and then we'll go back to talking about burner accounts. Golf people love misery more than anyone else. So I think the reason that golf people get so ginned up about these penalties is because they know how hard the game is. They see these people that are really, really good at a really difficult game, and they want to make sure that they too feel misery by calling penalties on themselves. And so that's why I think they get so turned up when somebody, runs right up to the line without maybe technically breaking a rule.
Yeah, I do believe that golfers are self-loathing because what sport, even in the best of times, even on your best day, will make you want to break your clubs in half. Like what, like there is no perfect game. You'll never achieve what you aspire to achieve. You will always be disappointed. And so yet another reason why I have no interest in playing, just spending multiple hours walking around on a grassy field, being angry at myself. I can do that on my own. I don't have to pay for that.
Well, it's the great double whammy of exactly what you just mentioned. And there's no defense and the ball doesn't move. Like there's no reason you shouldn't be able to execute it. So you're standing there, you're like, why can't I do this? There is literally no force working against me except my own incompetence.
But it's a strong force. That could be a strong. So the burner account thing is, so I agree. I think athletes are reading everything. I think there's probably a few like, guys that are just a little weird or whatever that kind of live in their own,
like maybe like a
place.
Kawhi Leonard.
I was going to say if Daryl Dawkins were playing basketball, he would be a guy that would, just because he's living on Mars, right? And so I do agree. I think most of them are watching, and I think even worse, they're getting it reinforced. I bet you their partners, their wives come and be like, "Did you see what they said about you?" Like I think this becomes a family conversation. If you have kids in the house, they're probably getting involved. So the burner thing is weird. Like I've never had a burner anything, a burner phone. My only alias is Bart Smalls.
Right.
Now, so what's interesting, should Bart Smalls have a burner account to pimp Sportish?
Wow, that is interesting.
And how bad would I feel if Bart Smalls got more attention on social than me?
So I think he should, and I think Bart Small should start every tweet with "Hey, this is key."
I'm all right. So Sportish, I'm doing it. I'm starting a Bart Smalls. I got to do it before this airs because I don't want anyone taking the Bart Smalls account. I am 100%. What's the picture going to be? It should be you, but with like a poorly drawn on mustache. Also, this is the part of the show, like
Bobby
Valentine.
This is the part of the show, Mike Wallace, where you have to change Keith's Twitter handle on the bottom of the screen there. You have to change it to the Bart Smalls handle. You have to do it. By the way, you bring up the Bobby Valentine. I'm sliding back. Bear with me.
I got to find out if there is a... Oh, so that's my Bart Smalls.
Where did Jeff go?
I got to find out if there's a Bart Smalls. This is great television. Is there a Bart Smalls?
Yeah, but here's the corner I've painted myself in. Do I have to keep these on for the rest of the show, or can I take them off now? Like, is the joke over?
Well, that's, is there anyone? I don't see a Bart Smalls. I might be the first one.
There's no Bart Smalls?
I'm not seeing it right now. It might take me a little time to kind of figure that out. So I will vet that. I'm going to start the Bart Smalls account, and the Bart Smalls is going to be Bart Smalls is going to be a Sportish fan, and that's how that's going to. So Bart Smalls will be all things Sportish. So we got another account for you all to follow, but it's going to frustrate us all when that account becomes far more popular than any of our personal ones. And then we're stuck then we got to ride Bart Smalls all the way to the house because once Bart Smalls takes off.
All right, I'm going back to Jeff Brault for the end of the show. Hold on. Hey, I'm back. All right. Dustin Pedroia, Boston Red Sox second baseman, retired from baseball this week. And so when somebody retires, you tend to get a lot of tributes in and stories told about them throughout their career. Here's a story that I found awfully unbelievable about Dustin Pedroia. He was with the Red Sox at the height of their, we're breaking the curse, we're winning World Series, we're at the top of the baseball world. Back in 2011, a coconut water brand named Vita Coco was trying to break into the market in America. Sure. They chose Rihanna as their celebrity spokesperson.
Good choice.
A great choice. Rihanna appeared on advertisements in almost every major American city hawking Vita Coco coconut water, except one. In Boston, they used Dustin Pedroia because Dustin Pedroia was found by market research to have more influence on the people of Boston than international superstar recording artist Rihanna. Does that not underscore that there's something a little off about Boston sports fans?
Well, there's something there is something off. That is interesting. That's like a regional. That would be interesting to do this city by city to find which person in that city has more influencer cred than Rihanna. That would be an interesting study. That would be an interesting study.
I also just realized that a lot of people, only listen to this show. They don't watch on For the Fans. And by the way, you should find out where you get For the Fans. If you don't get it on your cable
demand
provider,
it's on demand.
You can find them at ftfnext.com, not just the live show, which airs.
It's everywhere, by the way. I mean, you can watch this a ton of places. Ton of places.
You just got to find it. If you're not one of those people, though, if you're listening to the audio only version, I put on like one of those fake glasses and nose, eyebrow, and mustache thing. That's when I was like, hold on, I'm going to go back to the thing. If you're listening, you're like, I don't understand what just happened. Yeah. That's what happened. It was the same disguise that Bobby Valentine wore. I don't know why it took me a couple minutes to realize that we never explained that to the audio listeners. We're sorry. We still value you. And I hope this won't stop you from giving us a 5-star rating and a nice review.
I agree. We need some more 5-star ratings. We also need, I kind of blame you for this because this is your job. We're not getting the downloads that we should be getting.
Well, because we put so much effort into the television program.
I understand that, but your job is the marketing. That's your job.
No, my job is to host the program.
No, that's part. Yes, we have multiple jobs.
I mean, look, you know whose job the marketing should be? It should be Mike Wallace's job. That's whose job it should be. Michael producing Wallace. The marketing plan.
Right, I understand. Michael Wallace is the equivalent of the guy who presses the button when you drive into the car wash and it locks your wheels in. And you start.
He says he washed the car.
Yeah, Mike Wallace. He's not toweling it off. He's not doing anything. He literally, you give him your slip of paper that you got when you paid for your oil change. He takes that and he decides whether you're getting the simonized version 1, 2, or 3. He presses the button and then he goes back to whatever daydream he was having before. Your car could literally slide off the rails into the shop selling the fragrance fresheners, and he wouldn't notice. That's Michael Wallace. Don't expect him to market this program. That's on us.
Now, Keith, before we talk about your new favorite television show to end the program, the second favorite, of course, Sportish, obviously, is your favorite television show.
Sure.
Dustin Pedroia obviously had a great career. He won a number of World Series. Is the best thing that happened in his career the fact that he can say that he's more popular than Rihanna in the city of Boston?
That's a small. Does that include all the suburbs?
Is there a number of home runs you can hit where it's a tipping point where you're like, you know what, I will trade the popularity for the statistic? Because I don't know if I can think of one. Like, being more popular than Rihanna is like, that's a pretty cool thing to lead off with on the front line of your.
Pretty cool thing.
Resume.
The only problem is the parentheses in Boston. It does contextualize that whole situation. So, well, good for him. I'm not a big coconut water guy.
I don't think I've ever had it. Maybe I have. I don't know.
It's athletes love it, which it's good for. It's some kind of potassium. There's something about it. I don't know what it is.
When we're not locked in on watching all of the sports, as you can tell by the type of show that we do, sometimes we're watching HGTV, sometimes we're watching Food Network. And Keith, you have come across a new obsession that you literally held me hostage to demand that you be allowed to talk about. So you got like 3 minutes. Go ahead and tell us about Kitchen Crash.
Kitchen Crash is this great show. So basically what happens is they drop a couple chefs off in the middle of a neighborhood. It happened to have been the one I saw like 15, 20 minutes from here, right? In Wayne, New Jersey. They drop you off and you start banging on doors. You start banging on doors and be like, I'm a chef. I'm a chef. I'm on a cooking show. We can earn fine. They always, the way they say it, it's like they go out of order. Like you should lead with like, this is a TV show. Because otherwise you think you're being robbed. Like I'm a chef. Like you think, so I'm a chef. I need all your food and we're going to earn $5,000 if I win. And then someone eventually says yes. And of course, it's all staged because the person that said yes on the first episode, they're like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm the largest food distributor on the East Coast. Like, I mean, he had like gallons of olive oil and stuff. But, and also, you also know it's staged when the people that say yes, you're like, why is he wearing a freshly pressed polo and khaki pants on a Sunday at 8 a.m.?
Right. He's been through hair. You went through hair and makeup just all on your own.
So we get it. But so they go out there and then they raid the kitchen and then they come out and they have a cooking contest basically on the street, right? With whatever ingredients they got out and you're playing for the family. The best guy, by the way, the one house, and I don't know, some of it seems like it might be real as they kind of are knocking on doors. They're like, hey, can I come into your house and get your food? And he's like, you can come in. He's like, all I got is beer and cigarettes. That's my guy. He should have said,
that's my guy.
I'll take it.
You're like, what ingredients? We're DoorDash right over.
I got some sardines here. Let's see. I think I got a 6-month-old mayo.
You're like, what are you looking for? Some gourmet Frosted Flakes? Ain't no generics in my cabinet.
The worst would have been if they came into my house and be like, you can do it. And they'd be like, all right, where's the prime rib? Be like, oh no, we're vegetarian. We have some Impossible meat if you'd like. I mean, how disappointed would that person be? They'd be like, this is nice house, big kitchen. I feel like they got kids. There's going to be a lot of food. We'd be like, yeah, we have a lot of vegetables. We have some kale. So it's a great show. It's a great show. You should watch it.
No, I don't think I will. You didn't sell me on it. I'm not sold. I feel like I've seen every episode now.
They make it, then they go out in the street and they make it and they compete against each other and they make all this food. By the way, I'll tell you what, the controversy in the first episode I watched, a guy got eliminated. It was, main and 3 sides, right? That was the thing. You had to do a main and 3 sides. That sounds like something you would get at like a cafeteria, right? So,
I mean, it sounds like every meal ever prepared.
He tried to sell sauce as one of his 3 sides.
Oh, well, that's ludicrous. Sauce is not a side. That's stupid. They put this guy on television.
Wait, he got eliminated because of it. He lost because of it.
What a sour note to end this program on. That somebody considered sauce a side. I don't know in the same country as that person.
Take us to the house.
Shout out to Mike Wallace, who's got a lot of work to do. Both marketing this program and changing Keith's Twitter handle. Shout out to Bart Smalls, who's now going to be coming into all of our lives. My co-host, Dr. Keith Strother, director of the School of Communication Media at Montclair State University. My name, Jeff Burl. Thanks for hanging out with us on For the Fans. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Sportish. See you next time.